Rob's got it all under control.
There's items in the chat. Ready to roll?
I am. Tell me when you can move it. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone to this CDBG Advisory Committee meeting. Official terminology, here to talk about recommendations for our 2022 CDBG award. I believe this is actually the first ever meeting of this committee with a public in-face.
Yeah, in person.
Yeah, we've been all virtual. We're COVID forward. So in 2022, we got $271,015 from the federal government for CDBG. Importantly, for this meeting, $40,652.25 are eligible for public services grants. It's 15% of the yearly total. We got 6 requests for public services totaling $181,000, $499.80, which is great to see that demand and our growing awareness. We got 3 requests for construction projects. However, they've been withdrawn, but may come back. Our plan is to have another one of these meetings. You know, they operate out of a different bucket. That other money that was not in the $40,000. Plan is to potentially have another grant session, committee meeting, and request for proposals shortly. Application number 1 was an organization called Assist Indiana, who has not applied for us before. They are a group that deals with services for victims of violence. And their goal was to provide education to the Greenwood school system and to provide community agencies and churches to help on the front end of warding off child abuse, and also provide emergency funding for victims. Requested $2,000 to do this. Go ahead. We're going to go through all the applications first, and then
I put them in alphabetical order, so they already did
Yeah.
it. That's the only order. They're not in order of preference. just-
application 2, Bridges Alliance of Johnson County. Remember, we funded their Circles and Triangles program last year. They provide a variety of services, with case management for low to moderate income clients struggling to kind of gain a handful up. Their request was $31,357 to fund an increase in their Surviving to Thriving classes and grow their program with City of Greenwood residents. Application number 3 was the Greenwood Schools Foundation. This is a new applicant. They have started a Greenwood Education Foundation Cares initiative to meet the needs of youth and families in Greenwood, driven by the COVID-19 pandemic and their kind of growing organization. Requested $25,000 to fund pretty much 3 different routes, 3 different tranches. Mental health, basic winter apparel, and
Music therapy.
music therapy. Application number 4 is Harvest Food Pantry. Apparently we're skipping that. No, just
Just this one.
they are Ministry of St. Francis in Clare, Assisi. They've done 2 grants before with us. Request of $10,167 for Greenwood families seeking food and personal hygiene products. I know this is kind of a redo of a grant we did.
We have both their grants.
Both their
of
grants.
their grants.
Worked.
And they've done a really good
Yeah, I
job.
think we've drawn them down. Application number 5 is ROA of the Greenwood. We've done 2 grants with them with their food pantry. They are working on a new initiative to further their kind of goals, which is to essentially serve as kind of a leader in a coalition for homelessness, something that's been talked a lot about in Johnson County. They plan to coordinate with other resources, and the goal is to eventually grow this into a much larger program, but are asking here for essentially case management, correct?
Yeah, I can pull the budget,
Yeah.
and it's case management.
And that is it.
Oh,
no, we have application number
right,
6, the
the
refuge, sorry, the refuge. Was looking for rental or hotel expenses for a stable source of residency, income, etc. $63,600, and would be able to sustain 12 families who are suffering with employment, income, and insecurity issues. So the staff's recommendation, and our consultant, Alicia Bond, is here, also another member of the mayor's office, Molly Loud, who helps us on the front side of all these applications and the administering of this, is essentially, since we have vastly more funds requested than funds needed, is to fund essentially 4 organizations at $10,000 per organization to further their cause and achieve maximum input or impact. Application number 1 with Assist Indiana was very small at $2,000. Also, by providing education, it would be very hard to track and make compliance correct with.
Yeah, and the challenge with that was, it's just so small. They had originally asked for a larger grant, but it had a lot of ineligible costs in it. And so I offered, I'm like, is there staffing that we can pay to come in? And if it's not, their budget is really equipment related, or so it's not worth the time.
Application number 2, Bridge Alliance, is one that we would recommend a $10,000 grant to further their surviving and thriving classes. They have been in agreement with us. They know the stringency and expectations of a federal grant. Have been through an audit with us through HUD. They audited us digitally in person this year, which was interesting. And have proven some results in the past.
So they're doing pretty well. I would say if we award them, we need to make sure that we'll do that, let them know it's going to contingent. There's something of science with their program. And I want to make sure before that we would entertain contracts with them, we get that finished first.
Application number 3 will be a new organization, the Greenwood Schools Foundation. We'd recommend a $10,000 grant to them with specific emphasis on their mental health programming. It's been a long-standing goal of our city and the CDBG group here to try to address some of those needs. We did it in a big way with the Greenwood Schools proper and funding 2 family care counselors, which unfortunately the school corporation has not decided to continue as permanent positions. We funded it for essentially either a year and a half or a year at 100%, either at 50%. And so as a way to kind of fill the gap for when that program winds down, obviously it's not in the same money, but we don't have the CARES money anymore. We think this would be a way to try and backfill that loss of services for Greenwood youth. Application for Harvest Food Pantry through St. Francis and Claire. They've just all our food pantries go exceptionally well. Work with cleaners and get money out or get food assets essentially out to Greenwood residents and recommend a $10,000 grant there as well. Are we giving away all our food?
They have just a little bit left.
But we did total what, it was 50 grand or the CARES Act funds, and every single bit of it has been funded.
And they've all done a really great job.
And application 5, our way to Greenwood is the last that we recommend the 10,000 on. This is something that a lot of people have talked about. United Way, Circles Group, Molly knows, all the churches it's gone through that. You see it in the applications from Refuge, Grace, all the people over the years constantly trying to get homelessness. Here we are finding an organization that is putting some additional capital into it and seems to have, with the school and just the experience dealing with regulation, the ability to kind of deal with the federal funds, and they try to start to tackle that in Greenwood. We tried previously with Higgett and Franklin, but geographically and just size of the organization made that a challenge. And so to keep up that consistency, which is again trying to find something to address homelessness in northern Johnson County, we recommend 10,000 here. And that is the 40,000. We think by putting the 10,000 in OLG, we hit very similar to what the Refuge is doing. And in our experience, just due to size of the organization, nature of the organization at time, the OLG infrastructure is better able to handle federal funds than what's at the Refuge.
Yeah, the Refuge is asking for 100% of their program and had some ineligible costs as well, so there's some concern with that. OLG seems more prepared to cover those things that CDBG can't cover.
And they have experience with CDBG.
They do, they had a very clean, it was really easy.
The two organizations that are schools have, but also schools are familiar with government money.
Yes, so the four.
So the recommendation would be $10,000 grants to the Greenwood Education Foundation with emphasis on their mental health mission to continue what we funded in a big way with the CARES Act. The Our Lady of the Greenwood new initiative on homelessness, the Harvest Food Pantry to hit our food insecurity path that we've hit with this organization. And also the Greenwood, we did that already on missing bridges. Yeah, we did circles and triangles. And Bridges Alliance to meet their kind of wraparound wraparound services to kind of bring people sustainable growth.
Well, they mentor them
Yeah.
long term.
Yeah, they stay with them. So on this particular one, some of them will be people that they serve this year and then they'll add to it. So they'll be able to continue serving those same next year.
So out of curiosity, if they're only benefiting 6 people and it's 31, is giving them only 10,000. What was that?
I wouldn't hold them to the 10,000, but they might still be able to do it. And they have a new part-time staff person who's very familiar with fundraising. She comes from, has a background with School on Wheels up in Indianapolis and some other nonprofits. Having staff now can really get some of that development done. Okay, perfect.
Just as kind of a wrap up, and all the kind of reports that Alicia's been doing for us are all on the website for CDBG, not only this board, but any of the public. We have been able to, I looked at our spreadsheet, because of the $500,000 in extra care CDBG that we got in our second year existing, where we have 1.5 million essentially.
Yeah.
Almost total, so with this grant, we'll be almost administering for almost 1.5 million. Completed project, we put $100,000 out in direct rent assistance during COVID, rented United Way, a new skate park in Northeast Park, which is one of the areas that qualify for low to moderate income. And we also have planned a trail in Northeast Park, as well as a new shelter and bathroom to make that community more livable. And on the social services side, we've had, as I said, many things. We've had ID Tech job training program that's starting to have some draws. We've had the Greenwood
The Greenwood School Sports.
School support has had some pretty, paying salaries essentially at those positions. Bunch of food, $50,000 of food roughly. We're very hopeful too, with the larger pot of money we have in capital, that we'll start to get some of the charities coming in on that side, as Alicia mentioned, and we mentioned in this presentation.
We had three.
We had three who have it, some might have some pass forward to it. And I think as a future component of the LLG initiative, it could lead to
Right.
physical.
So Huckabee North is looking to kind of do something similar, where it's a facility that houses nonprofits, so it'll be closer to Greenwood. Most of the ones that have been funded are in Franklin, so closer to people that they serve. And then Habitat Community was looking at, and I'm working with all of these organizations, talking about helping renovate folks' homes so that they can stay in their homes.
Be something we try to do, give it a big thing that if we can't, because we do have spin down requests, because it's the joy of government money, we plan to again do a physical investment in a quality of life amenity in one of the areas that meets the low to moderate income threshold.
First, we're gonna try and get these applications.
Try. Pray.
Yes. I remember last year. Turn it back. So,
So I guess really the only action we have to be is if the two board members present today, Libby unfortunately, supposedly as a school nurse, she claims she has COVID. I mean, she treated it for like 2 years and avoided
Like
it,
how,
but now
how
she
would
has.
she know?
I heard she has a lake house, her family does, so I'm wondering if that's where she moved in. Not saying anything, but would it be okay making that recommendation to ultimately the Board of Works, the mayor and the Board of Works, is to get another layer on top of you guys. The Board of Works does the general contracting for the city. So it'd be making that recommendation, or any ideas you guys have otherwise, can you go back to our buckets, Molly?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. what
Can you go back to our buckets?
Yeah.
See what we have. If there's a desire to, that was initial, because we're right at 40, so we go 10, 10, 10. We steer it pretty equally through those. I don't think any of the prior year can pull forward, can we, Shay?
I can't meet the spent on services that are now bricks and sticks.
So once you get through the first year, they convert into bricks and mortar or bricks and sticks or whatever we should say.
So, right, so if it's a public service and they return it where they don't use their funds and they return it back to the city, it reverts to construction dollars.
Which, if you know, are anyone from Greenwood Parks, they love it when we come to them and say, hey, plan a project, but only this specific part, and it has to benefit these people, and oh, by the way, we need to spend it in about 4 months.
Right.
So it could be, it's for low to moderate income areas.
When we get to the, when we get into, so like of our $271,000, the part that's not administrative, which pays for Alicia reporting during the audits, if Molly and I want to claim time against that rather than just general government, it pays for essentially the overhead of running the program. Then there's your public service cap, which goes directly into these services. It is what it is. It goes into your home, your relief, your food banks, your
Anytime you're not building.
anything you're not building something. Then the big chunk of it, which is how much was it up to? 75% essentially, 60%, 75%, the money for each year is tailored to go either into housing improvements, which we're trying to find a partner with, or what do they call it? It's a more suitable living environment for a low to income.
Creating a suitable, yeah, so like, you could do improvements to infrastructure to make them more ADA compliant, or to create a nice neighborhood or suitable living environment.
So the SAWS project that the Rotary was, that we did, this is what I was thinking of, to pay for materials moving forward. So.
And that is the kind of CDBG money.
Yeah, and I talked with, yes, and going through all of that. Then SAWS actually called themselves, and I was an intern, and I don't think they, when they came in, I was like, well, if you come in prepared to advocate to the question of like, what makes this year different, because they were very quick to return the funds last time.
Yeah.
And I talked to yes, and kind of explained all the process and everything back with him on that.
So I just think the timing was too short, and it was, he was trying to figure it out, but the difference I see is that, and I am a member of this Rotary Club, but the difference I see is it would be the Rotary Club who would submit it. We would utilize the SAWS because they have the engineers or the architects.
Right, but you also, SAWS needs to be cooperative at the same time, like they need to be able to divide out the direct cost, like if the cost of the rent for that particular house, not just say, well, it's $5,000 a rent no matter what house we're at. Oh, no, we need an invoice for materials for there, however, so that relationship hasn't been worked out yet.
Right, so it was just too quick on the turn. But I think it's a viable thing.
So what about do we have an affordable housing issue in Northern Johnson County?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so, and I listened to the radio this morning and saying, yeah, I don't even know, it wasn't in this city, it wasn't in this state, it was like, yeah, you get a house, it's $200,000.
But I mean, I did it.
I'm just wondering about
Yes.
rent, so there's a couple of ways to do that, right? One is helping people stay in their own homes, whether that's rent assistance, whether it's upgrades. Of course, rent assistance, we can't use any prior year funds for any of that.
No, it has to come out of that small service gap.
So it would only be building projects.
Correct.
So building a multi.
So
which
the
you're not gonna
not
do, I mean,
new,
but
right?
what can you-
no, you can't
You
do
can
it.
renovate,
What can we do to have?
renovate. That's the path that Habitat for Humanity is going down. That's where their application looks at,
Yes.
is renovating existing low to mid income. She just, she's on vacation this week, so we're gonna get her to finish her budget.
So they withdrew
Right, when I
Well,
talked to
they
Leanne,
temporarily.
right,
They
so
didn't
when-
complete the process.
right, so
They
did-
collaboratively paused.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so I talked to Leanne, she hadn't finished the
Some-
application, there were some pieces.
She's actually in
Tennessee, yeah, with her father, I can't remember.
They just want to count.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we can go back, not that we're
would be
says, what are
able
you doing here? Then we can say, we really aren't addressing the issue. I mean, I get, and these are, the $40,000 is extremely important. Mental health, food, homelessness, the surviving, the mentoring,
Right.
extremely important. But how do we answer the question of
affordable housing,
what are
right?
we really doing to help affordable housing? And I get the skate park, I get all those things, that's unhousing, but it's going into apparently a part of the community that is low to moderate income and making it nice, making it a more livable and center, more enticing.
So there's other things that we can do for affordable housing, like we have the challenge is the capacity of nonprofits or other partner organizations to do it. Because it's you know, there's, in addition to building things, CDBG can be used for down payment assistance. So helping those home buyers come into the community, first time home buyers, it could be used for that. But again, it's, you know, someone that can screen who's affordable and eligible, who can help them.
And the reporting requirements.
Right. We need the organization to be there to do that, and we just don't have them. But it's very encouraging, I would say.
I would say that
Yeah.
based on the magnitude of response and the learning that's happening within the organization, the collaborative, that we're only 3 years old, 3 years into this, and it was 2 years during COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think the grant and Helping Grant is growing a public service infrastructure in northern Johnson County that wouldn't exist outside of it. And so I
Right, and I'm reaching out to like some Minneapolis-based organizations, hey, come help Habitat.
it's not a real
You
line.
come help build
It's just a
that,
road.
to build that capacity down here so they know,
Well, and
and
when
then they can do it themselves.
it's really encouraging that the conversation that is happening. I had a long discussion with Bonnie Prybush yesterday, and she was asking if maybe these funds could be used to do a housing study. And we got into it, I said, well, unfortunately, it only can be for Greenwood, so, you know, you want to do a Johnson County affordable housing study. I said, maybe the commissioners would be a better place than the city of Greenwood. I said, that's not really, but what is really positive is this conversation is happening and the momentum is building about, you know, the awareness is
Yes.
growing.
Well, if there are ways that as a volunteer, I can involved with these collaborations or going to
all I
places
can
to
think
get
of so many
to accomplish,
Uh,
whatever.
We can
Let me
go
know.
together, Charlie.
Well, it would be when you hit the working lessons, and the drive to.
Yeah, let me know because I enjoy that,
Oh,
that kind of stuff.
Oh, well, it is, I do too.
Well,
And
then you can run into and have those conversations, like, and they're interested, and go, well, if you're interested in the pool, before you, so you know what you're getting into. I think that was one of the things we ran into with this process, particularly with two of the organizations, they just filled out the application with them, they're like, we didn't realize it was federal, they didn't realize that they were kind of walking into it, and I'm like, let's not shut the door, let's keep the conversation going. I don't know what to do.
so we are making progress. I mean, I feel like we're moving forward.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it would be great if we could have you represent us to, I do know that Bridges Alliance is really heavy into driving the topic of affordable housing, really.
And I know Mark very well, so.
Yeah.
His son
Great.
is married to my daughter, so.
Well, yeah, see if you can ask him at dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, so.
So what do we need?
We need an affirmative, like, this is what we want.
So-
A motion.
recommendation.
Recommendation.
4 grants of 10,000.
I'll recommend that we do that, and we're gonna divvy up the 652.25 or 104 also, somehow or not.
Can we give it to just one?
Yeah, just
Oh,
give it
yeah,
to one.
yeah.
You got it.
Let's look.
You can pick which one.
Let's
you
take
wanna
our
leave
lady
it
at Greenwood and ask for the most, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Let's do that. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So OMG is
Thank you.
52.25, 6.
So I asked Molly in, Greenwood schools, I didn't know that they would put music therapy on there. I believe my company would be the company providing that service.
Well, good thing we chose the mental health, or would I have one
So-
vote here
We're gonna ask them to do just the mental health.
with our money.
Okay, okay.
We think that the mental health, with the CDBG money for this type of service, they have to get income verification.
Okay.
We think that sending, referring someone out to a counselor, they probably already assume that through the schools themselves, they have the income numbers. But we assume that that would be the easiest way for us to track and get it in the HUD. Whereas like their co-ed music therapy program, we thought would be more difficult to hit the income
Well, and
verification.
that's good to know, because we're gonna pay just straight to the.
Yeah, also, now that's good to know too,
Got it.
because
Okay, so
we would have
when,
had some,
we'll have to keep that in mind.
some make it, or whatever, but you can't fake it on this.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, if Libby can't figure it out,
I just saw it and I was like, well, I wanted to just tell you.
Well, the
guys
thing
too.
is that they didn't specify an application, they just said music therapy on the.
Yeah, we never assumed it was.
And I didn't, I mean, we talked to them, and so like, I would assume it would be with us, but I mean, they have the right to go to the music therapist if they would want. But with the fact that I own a music therapy private practice, I feel like it would be worthwhile to mention it.
And our hope with them too is that I know in a pool for their course, they're raising other, what do you call it, graded funds, matching funds, private funds on their Greenwood Cares Foundation to do these other services. We just felt in consultation with the mental health one, it put this committee in a linear path of supporting the mental health of at-risk youth in Greenwood proper. And two, it was the easiest that we thought path to get verification.
So we will recommend, okay, that we give 10,000 to Bridges, 10,000 to the Greenwood Schools Education Foundation, 10,000 to Harvest Food, 10,652.25 to the OLG.
Sounds good.
Excellent. So our next action item is.
We can sign off now.
Yep.
Rob, we can go. Yep, we can go off. We made a recommendation.
Are there any questions?
Hey, wait, are there any questions? I guess we do have one online.
Questions or comments from the public?
Any questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for coming.